If you're a Mountain Prairie Patreon supporter, then you probably already know that I recently began hosting another podcast for my friends at Ranchlands. It's called the Ranchlands Podcast, and it features conversations with members of the Ranchlands community. As of today, we're about 10 episodes in, and we feel very grateful that the podcast has been well received and shared widely. For those of you who have not listened to it, I wanted to share one episode here on Mountain Prairie. This one features my conversation with Kate Matheson, who's the ranch manager of the Zapata Ranch located in Colorado's San Luis Valley. Kate was born and raised in England and enjoyed a successful career in publishing and fashion before picking up and heading to the American West. It was a fun and inspiring conversation that I know will resonate with Mountain Prairie listeners. If you want to listen to more of the Ranchlands podcast, you can subscribe to it using the link in the episode notes or just look it up wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to hang out with Kate and me at the Zapata Ranch this upcoming summer, I encourage you to check out the second annual Strenuous Life Retreat, which takes place in August of 2023. It's 5 full days of adventure, learning, conversation, and camaraderie, all in the spirit of Theodore Roosevelt's commitment to living the strenuous life. The 2022 retreat was a huge success. We hiked high into the Sangre de Cristo Range, rode horses in Great Sand Dunes National Park, and alongside bison and elk on the Medano Ranch. We had discussions about conservation and regenerative agriculture with expert guests, and we started each day with strenuous exercise, then ended each day with top-notch dinners and a campfire. The retreat is a one-of-a-kind opportunity to spend 5 days with a like-minded crew, immersed in one of the West's most spectacular landscapes, pushing yourself hard both physically and intellectually. So to learn more about the retreat, check out the link in the episode notes. But without further delay, here is episode 9 of the Ranchlands podcast, featuring the one and only Kate Matheson. For this week's episode, I headed over to the Nature Conservancy's Zapata Ranch in Colorado's San Luis Valley, where I met up with Kate Matheson. Kate is the manager of the Zapata Ranch for Ranchlands, and she's also our director of hospitality and PR. Originally from England, Kate enjoyed a successful career in publishing and fashion before a fateful trip to the American West drastically changed her trajectory. After a few years of working on a ranch in Montana, Kate eventually found her way to Ranchlands, where she's been an invaluable member of this team for many years. This was a wonderful conversation about Kate's fascinating career path, her deep love for horses, and her journey from her home in England to her new home in the American West. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and if you have any follow-up questions for Kate, you can email them to podcast@ranchlands.com, and we'll answer them in a future Q&A episode. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Ed Robertson, and this is the Ranchlands Podcast. So we're going to start out with the obvious question. When people hear you talk, they're going to recognize that really thick Louisiana accent, and they're going to want to know what part of Louisiana you're from. So where did you grow up?
Well, at least you didn't say Texas, because they usually say that.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in southern England, at the base of the South Downs, which is now a national park. Is incredibly beautiful. And it has the sea on one side of the rolling hills and a huge valley on the other side. It's incredible.
I've never been to Europe. Can you believe that?
No, that's so
unacceptable.
Yeah, actually.
It really is.
And very surprising.
I'm going to be 45 in like 2 weeks, and I've never been to Europe.
Oh, Lord.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you have a passport?
Yeah. I've been to South America. I've done a lot of climbing trips all over, which could be anywhere because it's like the mountains. It's not really, it's just mountains are mountains. But so grew up there. Horses were a big part of your life early on. That's what I heard.
Yeah, really big gift. Yeah. I think I've always viewed that as one of the best gifts that my parents ever gave me. Were
they really into it as well?
My dad was, yeah.
Okay.
Had race horses in the 80s, and he had horses growing up, and very kind of horsey, and passed that on to us kids, and so pony club. Hunting.
Like fox hunting?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that for people who don't know. Because I remember when I was a kid, my dad's best friend was really into riding, and he would do these fox hunts, and we went to one of them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the coolest thing. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just like the tradition, the outfits, like the whole deal. It was like a cultural experience.
Yeah, it is very, very traditional cultural experience. Yeah. It's banned now, actually, in the UK, and it's...
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's trail hunting. It's called trail hunting, I think it is now, and they follow a scent that's laid down by a runner. So the hounds will, pursue that scent. But in the olden days, it was fox hunting. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think I started when I was about 7 or 8, and I had a little pony called Snowy that I would go out on, who was about 12 hands high, and my father would ride an 18-2 horse. So the difference was kind of comical, really. But I would say for me that was an incredible education. You're out there, rain, snow, you were soaked to the skin. You can't complain. You've got to suck it up. You've got your fingers are freezing.
Because it's humid. I mean, it's almost like Pacific Northwest, right?
Yeah. And really near the coast. So, yeah. And you're kind of... I mean, you're soaked to your tiny little bones, and your feet are wet, and you've got your Kit Kat in one pocket and your Snickers or your Mars bar in the other pocket, and that's your savior. They're your treats for the day. So, and there's a lot of etiquette involved. There's a lot of not just the clothing, but how you ride, how you follow, who opens the gates. Saying good morning to the right people, and it's a kind of really cool education of. I don't know what the right word is, but just etiquette and tradition.
Sure. Well, I would think, and so were you going all out on the horse at that age, 7, 8, like galloping? I mean, full speed?
Yeah, you're going full speed, yeah. Which, that's not as fast as an 18-2 horse. Sure. But it's pretty fast. Yeah, you're going all out. And when you come to the jumps, there'll be some that you're going to approach, and then some you'll go through the gate instead, and there's always people going around jumps or through gates and things, so you do that.
I would imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine that when you're out riding at that young age and there's a purpose to the riding, and you're not just in an arena like, now I'm going to jump, now I'm going to do this, like we got to get over there, we got to go fast. I would guess that you get better a lot faster.
Yeah.
Is that correct? It'd be like somebody out here.
You get braver a lot faster.
Cows versus riding around in the pen or something like that.
And actually, I would say that because we didn't. I'll just say that we didn't grow up with like all the best riding gear or the best horses or anything like that at all. We were very hand-me-downs and scruffy ponies and, making do. So we actually didn't have a trailer, so we would ride to wherever we were going. So you had to start way earlier than everyone else that was trailering in the fancy, outfits. But, I think there is weirdly a similarity to a big crew of or a big team from the ranch saddling in the dark, getting horseback and riding out, and the sun coming up.
Yeah.
The multiple times I've done that, it is often, it's kind of reminiscent of getting up and getting your pony saddled and riding off to the hump meet where you meet with the bunch of other riders, and then you head out on your kind of mission for that day. So, well,
that's cool. And it's like a teamwork kind of thing too. I mean, it's a community building kind of thing. And you're building these bonds with people that you wouldn't build otherwise.
Yeah. That's and really also cool. Just the feeling of like the actual landscape and the first light, and being very familiar with that, and the cold, and warming up when the sun comes up, and things like that. So,
did you have any siblings? Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I do. I'm one of 6.
Oh, are you really? Yeah. So was riding big for everybody?
In the early days, yes.
Where are you in the
I'm
rank?
Second to last.
Okay, got it.
Everyone else is older except for my younger sister. Yeah.
So riding was big. What else did you do? What else was your focus as a kid?
Riding.
That was it.
Ponies every weekend.
That's awesome.
really. Yeah, I mean, we did other normal kid stuff.
Yeah. But that was the
focus.
Was
yeah.
And so you go to high school, get out of high school, then what do you do?
I did a photography foundation and a Harvard photography degree, and I dropped out. I just was not technically good enough. I just didn't really feel like, what am I going to do with this? I'm not actually very good at it. Like I can see photographs. I can imagine photographs. I see photographs all the time, even now, daily. Technically, I don't always know, or I don't often know how to actually produce that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So, but you still got kind of an eye for it, and it captures your attention. But then when you dove into it, you just didn't want to be taking the photos.
I just couldn't. It was frustrating for me. So I dropped out, and I actually went and did work experience on a music magazine, a really cool one at the time called Mojo, and went there, and I don't even know how I kind of came about that idea, but
were you interested in music too, or was it just
big time? Okay. Yeah, big time.
Like what kind of music?
Mostly indie music, UK indie music, but very much kind of 60s as well. 60s kind of psych and northern soul and things like that. But the very kind of the indie culture, I think at the time was quite a big influence in things like places I went out to and stuff like that. But when I went to this magazine, I was literally like, I cannot believe this is a job. I can't believe that people do this as their job.
Yeah. And how old were you then? Like 19, 20?
I was 18.
Wow. That's cool.
I was like, this is so cool.
Was it in
I mean,
London?
I didn't know anything about anything. So, that was kind of I was blown away by that.
And was it in London? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I stayed with my older sister in London. That was a whole, adventure in itself, and getting the tube and her helping me with directions on, and you've got your little book of how to get around, your map in London. You won't know that because you haven't been, but the old days there was a map that everybody carried with them before they had a cell phone. And anyway, that was a whole adventure, but so then I carried on, studied photography a bit after that, but it was really in my mind that I wasn't going to be a photographer, and it was all very expensive to finish out, and I kind of just felt like I could maybe go to work.
And that was still, we're about the same age, I think, and so that was still film, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I remember when I was in college, I took a photography class, and it was like right when things were starting to transition to digital, but there wasn't until it was a film class. And that's it's such a commitment to try to figure out all the apertures and all that when it's like a week between when you take the pictures and when you actually see them.
And you get them back and you got to put them on the light box and you're looking, there's just a lot. It very involved.
Sure.
Very involved. But and also really that transition happened when I actually a little bit later did end up on a magazine, on a photo desk, and commissioning photographers.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'll just tell you one really great. I mean, for me, it was so exciting when I could kind of, it was sort of a fantasy idea, but I kind of believe in like manifestation, and I must have been doing that a lot because I I was working at a call center doing market research. I mean, honestly, that's not to be a snob, but like that is seriously the worst job I could ever imagine doing.
It's like telemarketer kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, it was painful, and I managed.
That's a fair statement.
I managed to do a month, and at the very end of that, I got given a project to call every single photo editor in London and ask them about a new image transfer system called ISDN or something. It's basically like a version of email that just never took off, I think, basically. But I phoned somebody and did the questions, and I went outside afterwards and I had a word with myself, and I said, this is it. If you want to do that, you need to go back in there, and the next person you phone, you ask them for a job.
That's awesome. And so did you do that?
I went in there and I asked them for a job. I said, like, this is what I want to do. How do I do this? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm meant to be asking you these other boring questions. And I'm probably going to get cut off soon because they listen in on you.
Oh, yeah.
And the lady,
traitor.
And the girl said, just email me. Or no, phone me. Or I can't even remember. Did she say email me? I can't even remember if that existed, but call me or something anyway. So, God, the high off that was just fabulous.
And what organization was that?
That was for EMAP. It was a publishers,
okay.
and it was for Bliss magazine, a teen magazine.
Okay.
And I went in. I ended up connecting with her, and I went in and met her, and she offered me a job to start a week later as her assistant. So, you don't get if you don't ask, I guess.
No, I think that's a great lesson there for people. You got to be aggressive about it. This stuff, every now and then these magic things just happen, and in some ways that was the right person at the right time. But if it wasn't for you just saying, "Screw it, I'm going to ask,"
Yeah. I know they're quite bold there, quite a confidence that I kind of don't always have, but sometimes you sort of have to have a word with yourself, pretty much.
You have to.
But yeah,
that's what I tell my little girls all the time. I'm like, this stuff doesn't just happen. You got to make it happen.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. Yeah.
All right. So you get into that side of the business, and then what's your career look like? So how old are you then? Like 20 then?
20, yeah.
Okay. 20.
Oh, it was the best. I loved it. Had the best time.
All in London?
It was just hilarious and fun. And the friends I made at that time are still my closest best friends. And we can not see each other for a year or 2 or 3, and it's just chaos when we meet up. It's brilliant. But it kind of progressed. I ended up at Glamour magazine, and it's much more serious there, and just not so much messing around and going wild, but a bit more kind of professional and working with much bigger photographers, and the kind of bit real deal there. It was kind of fun, and learnt a lot. But for me, in the end, that was not sustainable. This career path was not sustainable. All I can think about is that, the growing up in the countryside, being around animals and landscape, and kind of being whipped in the face with rain and things like that. That kind of it leaves a mark on you at a certain point when you're growing up that, is endearing and you miss. And I missed it. And I used to walk miles and miles and miles home from the office to my house in North London to just feel something.
Sure.
Like rain, wind, heat, whatever it was. The pain in my feet walking literally on the pavement. That all sounds a bit dramatic, but to not be sat in a office.
What did your friends think of you, like the crew you were hanging out with? What did they think? Did any of them understand what you were talking about?
I didn't talk about it.
I get it. You didn't? You just did it?
Didn't talk about any of that because it was just something brewing in me, and I didn't really know what I was feeling or how to express that at the time. And but something wasn't right for me, and it took a long time to kind of come out, and for me to really even think real thoughts about what was happening with my, how I was feeling and what I was going to do. And in the end, I thought, well, if someone had taken a sabbatical, and I was like, wow, that's kind of amazing. And I was still pretty young at that point, and I thought, well, maybe that will fix this, go and do something. And so I was, very grateful. They gave me one, and I went in there and said, this is my job. I will have this job forever. I love this job. There's no other job for me. And they gave me a sabbatical. And
how long had you been there at that point when they did that?
About 4 years.
That's awesome.
4 or 5 years. 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
And so then went... I don't know where this idea even came from, if I'm honest, to go out, other than I know I wanted to experience riding on a ranch. But honestly, I didn't even know what that was or what that meant.
Had you ever been to the United States as a kid or anything?
Yeah, I've been to New York and I've been to LA.
Okay.
On very short trips.
Sure.
And thought that was America.
Yeah. I just went to LA for the first time like a month ago. Oh my God, that traffic. The weather's awesome, and But
I mean, good,
I've never seen,
good for them. I can't.
Yeah, I can't do it.
No.
New York's cool. But so you had this idea. Where did the ranch idea come from? I mean, you don't know where it came from?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I think, and I've been asked that question before, you know, and I've tried to think, like, did I watch a film?
Yeah.
Did I see something? I don't know.
And what was your idea of America? And I'm always curious. We were talking about the passport before we started recording. I lived in Central America for a year, and my biggest takeaway from that was looking at the U.S. from the outside in and seeing it, and just seeing it from a different angle, and seeing some of these jokers that go down there and how they act and how silly they seem in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that was the valuable takeaway for me. So, like, what was your impression of the U.S. before coming here?
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds very shallow. But like,
no. Well, in your
cool
career, like fashion and that kind of
big
thing.
imagery, you know, a lot of imagery is coming to mind, and the light, and I guess thinking about it in a kind of almost photographic way, actually. And
are you thinking about people or New York
places?
City or
New
big
York
mountains?
City. No, not actually.
Okay,
no,
just,
or even rural.
Yeah, it was the
and
cities.
rural really was like hillbillies.
Sure.
Where are they? I mean, they're everywhere. That's outside LA and New York, right? Oh my God, so embarrassing.
No, I mean,
but
how else would you know? I mean, you know, that's.
Well, if I'm honest, if there wasn't Instagram then, or there wasn't really, you know, the internet was kind of newish.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Last night I was telling my daughters what encyclopedias are, because they have it at school, Britannica, something on a computer, on their iPad or whatever. And I was explaining what encyclopedia, and that wasn't that long ago.
No, I mean, what would you use that for now? Really, doorstop.
Yeah,
to be honest. But so I guess, but very cool, and the cowboy imagery. You know, I didn't. You know, you have that through film and things like that, and the big space. So I guess, like, you know, just riding on a ranch, the romance of that.
Yeah,
definitely. So, yeah, that was my idea. But it was so limited. You know, in that really. So when I found a ranch to go and visit. It could have been anywhere in the West. I didn't really know the difference between the states, apart from one was more deserty, one wasn't, etc. So, again, incredibly naive. And headed out there, no cell phone. I got picked up. I was going to stay in the basement of this ranch house.
Where was it?
In Montana.
Okay.
North of Billings.
Okay. Yeah, so that's stark country through there, or it can be. It's not like the base of the Tetons.
No.
You know. And so were you going to be working there or just visiting or hanging out? Like, what was the pitch? Like, how did you get involved with
visiting and experiencing it?
Okay.
And I actually communicated with the wife of the ranch, and she's brilliant and warm and super smart woman, and kind of just welcomed me over there. And I mean, I was part of their family, really. It's a 5th generation ranch, and
wow.
You know, they were incredibly open and generous with me. And but when I first got there, I put my bags down and burst into tears and was like, what the actual fuck?
What have I done?
What am I doing? Whose idea was this?
Yeah.
Who signed me up for this, for God's sake?
And had you committed to a certain amount of time to be there?
Yeah, I had. Yeah, it was most of the summer. And I was just like, oh my God. Freaked out, totally freaked out.
That's understandable. I've been there in different landscapes, but...
I mean, it seems so baby now. But I think, you know, I'm not kidding, like how the impact of Instagram and Facebook has made on, you know, these wild places are not so wild. You
know, even if you haven't actually experienced it, you kind of know what you're going to be seeing or some version. I mean, that's how, you know, even here at the Zapata, I knew what it looked like. I've never been here before.
You know, it's safe because someone else has Instagrammed it 1,000 times. And, you know, it's, you know, that it's, you know, a kind of, these people have been there, so why couldn't you be there kind of thing? It just wasn't like that. And not to sound like 100 years old.
We do sound like two kind of crotchety old people.
Oh my God. But it was a little bit different, It was. So
well, I think not to say it's better or worse, but I think it adds to the adventure a little bit when you don't know what you're getting involved in.
I agree with that. Not to sound again like God.
You young people don't know anything.
Yeah, you don't know what adventure is.
So
that's not true at all, and I don't want to be that kind of person at all. But it felt very adventurous because it was. I don't think anyone that I knew even knew where I was.
Yeah.
So I think that to kind of and we're just talking about north of Billings, Montana, which now does not seem that crazy.
But so, what did your friends and parents and siblings think when you said you were going to do this? I mean, did you have was it just kind of like, oh, she's a free spirit. She does this kind of crazy stuff. She'll go over there and she'll come back. And
yeah, definitely already was sort of not forging, but just kind of doing things that were maybe a little more surprising to my mom and stuff like that. So I don't think it was like a shock, but it was, exciting. Good for you. Sounds amazing. Off you go.
Okay.
But it wasn't until, when I come back and actually decide to quit my great job and then go back, that's when people were starting to question what I was doing and why, and thinking it was insane to give up such a great role. And job, and actually it was scary. It was daunting. I think I knew what they were thinking, or sometimes they said it, and it did make me really question it a number of times. But something in me was like, even though I wouldn't even thought twice if I knew this is where I was going to end up, right? But you had no idea.
No.
No idea what that journey is going to be like, or where you're going and what you're doing. I mean, literally, except you do know what you're doing. It's kind of a weird.
No, I get it. I mean, it's different. But when I moved to Jackson Hole from North Carolina, I didn't know anybody there. And I had some garbage place I was living. And I remember there was some sort of domestic issue where the police came to one of my neighbors, and I'd been there two nights. And I was like, what have I done? Yeah. I'm peeking through the window. Yeah. And it's just, when you're out on your own like that, it'd be kind of crazy if you thought, I got it all figured out. I know exactly what I'm doing. So when you think about that summer there, how were you different? So the person who showed up was one person, and then when you left, you were a different person. How were you different? Because it seemed like you already had
alive.
You were alive, but you had this thing that a lot of people don't have, or at least they don't think they have, of enjoying suffering and understanding suffering is good for you. And I'm sure you got a good dose of that, although it was the dry and hot kind versus the humid. But how did you leave different? When you think about looking back at your young self, how were you different?
Well, I would say that all of a sudden I realized there's just not one way to live your life. Mm-hmm. My God, there is an infinite amount of ways to live your life. Yeah. And that was thrilling. Mm-hmm. It's so exciting. And it broke the pressure of thinking that I was going to need to buy a flat in London. Mm-hmm. And that I was going to have kids and wheel them to the park in the rain and swing them on swings in the rain, and then we'd go home and we'd be in a flat, and I would need a promotion, and I need to get to that next level of whatever in my career, and so competitive. All the things you cram your head full of when you're on the bus on the way to town, to your commute and stuff. So it just blew that.
You don't have to do that if you don't want to.
Oh my God. Freedom to think that there is just so many ways to live, and seeing how that community lived, and actually that was a huge part of it. The romance took me there, but and actually that still exists for me now, but community I'd never experienced before until I visited there, and living with land. You know, we'd been loving and enjoying land in a different way, you know, growing up, but living with it, making a living from it, and raising your family on it, and how your neighbors and friends and businesses interact with that, and your legacy, land as a legacy, and all those kinds of things. I mean, this was, wow, you know, really amazing. And let alone just like the actual exhilaration of being out in an enormous landscape by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and having those moments where you're like, for me, is nothing better.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff, I guess, was coming back. I was changed in a lot of ways. And yeah. You
hear there's this phrase that is overused about broadening your horizons, but I think that's a perfect description, or even like taking the blinders off, because it's very similar to how I didn't hate when I was in North Carolina. Like, I didn't hate it or anything, but I didn't know there were any other options.
Yeah.
And then when I came out here, it's like, wait, what? You can do this? Like, you can do whatever you want? And, and it's not at all like I felt like repressed. I mean, there was definitely an unease, and I knew something was off, but I couldn't. Yeah. And then when you realize, well, you can do whatever you want to do if you're willing to work hard enough, and you get a little lucky along the way.
Yeah.
Well, did you have any close calls, any scary stuff happen to you during that summer? Like any get thrown off horses or?
Yeah. But that's all to be expected.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff's all normal. Nothing scary. I mean, we were camping in the back of pickups, you know, in the snowies, and going to rodeos, and, you know, all the kind of fun, wild adventure West kind of, you know, the West offers, the culture that the West offers, and working cows, and riding different kinds of horses, and meeting very different kinds of people with very different political viewpoints, and, you know, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just all of it very rich and great.
So that wraps up. You go back to England. Then what happens?
Then I quit.
Just quit?
Because I have to go back.
Did you really? And were you going to go back to the same place?
You have to work out, like, the contract. I think it makes you do, like, I think it was like 3 months. They make you do 3 months or 6 months.
So
that's part of the deal.
So you got the sabbatical.
Yeah.
And then you had to finish up 3 months.
Yeah.
And so then you're done.
Painful 3 months thinking, get me back.
All right. So you finish that, you're out of there, and then go back to the same ranch?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I asked them if they would have me back, and they said yes. So, yeah. I actually ended up being there for 5 years.
Well, yeah, I remember a few weeks ago when I was here, and you were talking about Billings, how you go up there, and I didn't know the depth of the relationship.
Yeah. Well, my husband's from there.
Yeah.
We met when I was there in Montana.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
We met there, and yeah.
So, do you get there in the spring, or do you show up there in the wintertime when you go? When you go back?
That was That was the. What was that? It was actually spring.
Okay.
In the end, yeah.
And so, what was that? What was that time like? I mean, you're there. I mean, are you a straight up employee for these people?
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was an ag employee, and I was helping start colts, and I was learning a lot doing that. I mean, I started one horse in England. I mean, it was kind of different system, you know. So brilliant education there, or beginning of, and I was watching their kids. I was. They took a couple of guests on the ranch every couple of months, so I was helping with that, and I was learning how to, you know, work cows, and learning kind of just all the basics of ranch life, really. And then, but I had a few moments that really kind of piqued my interest with ranching. Particularly was the husband was looking at kind of other new methods to get animals grazing different places, and installed like a new pipeline, new water line to get animals grazing up in places they'd never grazed before, and that was really interesting. Then there was this whole other level starting to develop, you know, like, okay, it's not just getting on your horse and moving cows, even though it's much fun as that is, that there's a lot more kind of reason started to come in for me and meaning behind what we were actually doing. So
that's really cool. And while you're doing all this, do you miss at all the kind of the work that you were doing, not sitting in an office or being in a city, but just kind of the creative side of things that had been your career before
No,
this?
because you're creative. I think if you're a creative person, your creativity comes out or expresses. It can't stay in. I think it
it's
comes
going to
out.
find something to latch onto.
Yeah, a different avenue to come out, I think. And for me, it started to be photography after all that.
Really?
So taking photos.
That's cool.
It's just as a journal, as an expression, as a way to just. Can't write. I'm a terrible writer. I can't. Awful. So
I think you're too humble.
No, very cringe. And so for photos for me, we're starting to do that.
Okay.
Really, it's a diary for me, actually.
Yeah.
So I have, thousands of those.
And how did you, I might be missing, tell me if I'm missing a step, but when did you meet the Phillips family, or when did you hear about Ranchlands? How did that come in?
Well, with that same, with the wife, Jody, she is really very smart woman and very entrepreneurial and always thinking, very business minded. And she, we kind of worked together on launching a ranch vacation marketing company.
Oh, cool.
And she that was her kind of business conception, and she pulled me in on that. I kind of helped with a bunch of the creative side and then connecting with people, and I could travel because I didn't have kids at the time, so went around visiting ranches and seeing if there were places that we wanted to promote and market, and quality, really rating them for the quality and of their horses, their food, their beds, their experience, the people, who they're good for, what kind of clients are good for them, and things like that. And so I got to travel quite a bit, actually, through that, and having Montana as a base. And she couldn't, because she had kids, so I was very fortunate that was me. So it was me driving across different states.
So cool.
Heaven, just the best time. So it was just kind of going from one great fortunate situation to another. Really, it was just wonderful, and very grateful. And I had the best time doing that, meeting people. Wow, some of them were homestays, so you're staying with these people in their homes in New Mexico or Arizona or wherever. It was brilliant, and meeting all these different characters. And anyway, one of those tours was at Chico and Zapata.
Got it.
So I went to Chico first, and I stayed in a motel just near Chico Basin Ranch that was really unpleasant, and had to be at the Chico at 4 a.m. because we were going to ride out and gather cows. God, I was so nervous. How the hell was I going to find this ranch at 3:30 a.m.?
Yeah.
What the hell? So anyway, found it, rode out with Big Duke, and Little Duke was there, and the ranch crew at the time, and it was great. I rode with Duke, and we talked about everything other than ranching, everything other than horses, and art, and London, and Spain, and all these great things. And he was like, "You gather this bunch here, and take them up the bank, and this direction." And off he went at one point. So I'm crossing a boggy sort of creek bottom, and my horse completely gets stuck, utterly stuck in the mud up to its belly. And I'm thinking, look, I don't have a phone. I don't know where I am. Is he going to come back?
Yeah.
I'm meant to meet him like way over there. So I don't know, but it's just one of those moments where you are literally saying, you're swearing. And then I get off, and I kind of pull this horse and pull on it, and bless it, it works really hard to get out, and its cinch is snapped.
Oof.
So I'm like, well, now what do I do? For God's sake. So I just have to and I think this is a great, example of or a great way, a lesson, just being resilient and making the most and making do. You kind of just I don't know what I did. I tied it together, but it wasn't safe, but it worked.
You got it to work.
Yeah, and off we went with these cows. And when I met up with him, he was like, "Hey, good job. How's it going?" I'm thinking, "Oh, you have no idea." Good, it's great. All right, so that was cool. And little Duke actually, or D4, sorry, headed off to Australia not long after that, I think. So I didn't see him for a couple of years. Or I don't know, but it was quite a while after that. So that was great to kind of meet him at the very beginning there. And it was about 6 months later that came to round up bison with them on horseback here at Zapata. After wangling an invite.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there was no way I was just dropping the biggest hints ever that I wanted to come. Let me come.
I think there's a long history of people dropping hints wanting to come do that. You know? I mean, what a cool deal.
Yeah, wild. I mean, you know, for so many reasons, not a great idea, but absolute wild fun. Just my kind of fun, actually.
Sure.
But did that, and then they offered me a job to manage Zapata on one of the evenings I was here for that.
Okay, got it. And so was that a big deal? I'm sure it was. How much of a big deal was it leaving these awesome people up in Montana?
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was again like, oh gosh. I think that sometimes, you know, there's just instinctively something you know you're going to do or you've got to do, but it doesn't make it like necessarily easy.
Well, and I would guess that they knew, I think a good boss or a good mentor, whatever, they know that eventually if they do their job right, you're going to go off and do your own thing or do something different. And it'd be weird if you're just hanging around for 40 years.
It was time, definitely time. It was time to kind of, to kind of really knuckle down into a new, you know, project. I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of.
And so how many years ago was that?
That was in 2011. I got offered the job and I started early in 2012. I drove into Zapata and it was like not a leaf in sight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these spooky big cottonwoods.
Yeah.
Dark, black, surrounding the lodge, and then the wind. Oh my God!
Just being here today. I mean, it feels like winter, and it's such a different deal than even late fall when I was here last.
Yeah,
you know?
But I feel like today is still very, very beautiful.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Somehow that image of like, you know, that you know the landscape here. It's kind of very open prairie, you know, and then there's these cottonwood groves, you know, that kind of stick out from the bottom of the mountains. And that one really was like, I've got an image of that driving along 150 and seeing that and thinking, oh my God, the wind was like out of control. And I was thinking, oh my God, again, oh my God, what am I doing? But
that's a good lesson for people though. You know, that's going to happen. If you're going out on a limb, you're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Unless you're just wildly confident, you know, maybe psychopath level confidence, you're going to have that.
Yeah, and it's healthy.
And I think about every single thing I've done that I'm proud of. Like before I started it, I was literally like in tears.
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What is wrong?
No, you're right. Yeah, that's good.
So talk about your career here, because I feel like you've been able to combine your love of big landscapes, horses, you know, fighting off being uncomfortable or embracing being uncomfortable, I should say, with your early career of fashion, art, photography, marketing.
Yeah.
Kind of. So talk about how that came together.
I know, so lucky.
Because it's really, it seems like a perfect match.
It's, incredibly lucky.
I kind of know. Well, that's what humble people say. There is always luck, but you busted your ass to make it happen. But I feel like it really is like the perfect match, because I knew your background high level, but I didn't know this level of detail, and it would have been really weird if I'd been asking these questions. Just like, so the podcast is good for that. But it seems like a perfect setup for what you've done and what you're interested in.
Yeah, my job now was I guess one of the coolest things is I've been able to create my role to a degree over the years, and it wasn't advertised as this, and it started as something a bit simpler actually, and has my sort of I don't know if it's ambition or want of, some of control to a certain degree, to kind of really be proud of something and to be associated with something. Mm-hmm. You want to get hold of it and really kind of make the absolute best that you can do with it. And I think that's that's how it kind of progressed. It's like, okay, can I try this? Can I do this? Can I be involved in this? Can I have a go at that? And then it just kind of grows. And now it's, I have a lot of roles here, and it's fabulous. So from the creative side through to the land side and the ag side. So really grateful for that.
And would you say that ability to kind of go out and try new stuff and make it your own is what has made you, so what is it, 11 years now, I guess you said?
I'm coming into my 12th year.
12th year. So there's always a new challenge, I would think.
It's been learning it sounds so cheesy. And I think people do take this phrase for granted, but just learning every day. Yeah. Quite genuinely learning every day. Mm-hmm. And you need to be resilient. I think that is a key. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be willing to do things wrong and learn, not willing to do things wrong. You've got to be willing to try things and know that you're going to get it wrong. Yeah. And learn from that. And whether it's to do with people or to do with animals or the land or business, whatever, just keep trying and keep doing things and keep thinking. And then it's just exciting. Then it's always exciting. It's always not a challenge because, you do get good at some stuff eventually.
Sure.
I hope.
Yeah, me too. I'm slowly at age, like I said, almost 45. I think I've gotten halfway good at like 2 or 3 things. So.
Yeah, I always think that I'm not very good at one thing. I'm more like I can do a little bit of lots of things. That's been my probably key to success. Is
have you read the book called Range? It's by this guy named, I think his name's Epstein. I've only skimmed it, but a lot of people have brought up this book because it talks about there is a real need for people that are very good at being generalists, who can do a lot of stuff. And they versus being so specific, you really can't do anything else.
Right.
And so I think I need to read that because I love books like that because it provides like science that just makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah, I should read that. I should definitely read that because I think that is, in some ways, well, that's good because I've viewed that as a negative a lot in the past, actually. And, I think that there's always these amazing opportunities to be, these programs and even the apprenticeship and things to go into something very specific and focus on one thing. Yep. And I don't know if I just, I've not done that. I haven't done those things. And I've always had to be very adaptive. Mm-hmm. But it is, I'm getting closer to seeing that as a benefit.
I think it is. I definitely think it is. I think sometimes when people are so super specialized, I always think about engineers. Like they're so much smarter than I could ever be. Mm. But there's always one guy at an engineering firm that's like me, that his whole job is to translate from the smart engineers to the clients.
Yeah.
Because they can't do
the ability to do
their brains are so focused on building bridges. Yeah. And so I think it's important. You wouldn't want a whole bunch of us though, because we wouldn't have any bridges.
No, exactly. It'd be like, I've kind of got an idea how it would go. I can see it in my mind, but I don't know how I actually do it. Yeah.
So, it's pretty clear how much you love this place and it's your home. This is your home. It has been.
It's a massive privilege.
But
God.
I'd heard all these stories about Zapata, and I didn't fully understand it until I did my workshop here. Mm-hmm. And both for me, but then also for the guests that showed up, you see this almost like a transformation in these people. And my workshop was 5 days, maybe 6 days, and people come in here and it gets a grip on them and they just fall in love with this place. And obviously it's pretty I mean, you get to do fun stuff, but there's some X factor that I can't nail down that really just grabs people about this place. Do you have any like stories off the top of your head of some guests who've come here and kind of had a cool, like life-changing experience? Is anything, I mean, I'm sure it happens all the time.
Well, not to brag, but like it does happen a lot.
It seems like it.
It happens a lot, and it's incredible. Mm-hmm. But it's not so unbelievable. I get it.
Yeah,
I get why that happens. I understand, and this place is exceptional in its landscape and its beauty and the details and the intricacies about it. But how you feel when you're placed in it and put in it, has these incredible reactions, and or people do, and so I do understand, but it happens often, and we've got amazing stories, loads and loads of them actually. But our guest Rutger, who's a very good friend of Ranchlands now,
he's
and
awesome.
He came and did a branding with a woman called Lynn and a woman called Christy, and they come back. They met here and they made friends here, and they come back together every year, sometimes twice a year, and that friendship was forged here. And then there's people who have come years ago, passing through or traveling or whatever, and now they're bringing their kids back. Like this summer, Helen Levi came with her son, and another guest came with her kid, and just so I don't know. It does. There's lots of great stories like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get people in tears leaving.
It's something. There's something else, and I don't know how this happens, but it's like it attracts kind of like-minded people. Because I thought in my workshop, I was the leader of it or whatever, but I really, like on Tuesday night, I could have just disappeared and nobody would even notice because they were all having so much fun with each
isn't
other.
that cool?
Yeah, and they established all these friendships, and I mean, you saw it like at dinner.
Yeah.
They're just
it is like a dinner party here in the evenings, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, whether it's a a specific workshop, or it's individuals that have come traveling by themselves or with a friend or a partner, the dinner table always ends up kind of like a dinner party.
Yeah.
And recounting stories of their day, because you might ride in the same place, like the dunes, for example, or out with the bison, but guaranteed your ride is never, even if you rode there every single day, you are never going to have the same experience every single time.
Yeah.
It is different for everybody, because that's the cool thing about land, right? And landscapes and wildlife and weather, and
Seasons,
it's always different, and there's always things that will reveal themselves to you as you are out there. So people are that's a big buzz, like, oh, did you see that? I saw that too. Oh, I didn't see those. There's a lot. Yeah.
Do you have a specific place on this ranch or in this valley that's your favorite? You don't have to share that. Some people are like, no, yeah, I do, but I'm not telling you. I don't want everybody to go.
I do have some favorite spots, but Sand Creek is incredible. Mm-hmm. There's some obvious ones like that are just, just so beautiful and surreal almost. But I also have favorite spots that change consistently, and it could be literally out there on my horse as the sun peaks over the mountains, and that all of a sudden is my favorite spot and my favorite moment.
That's cool.
So it can change all the time. Yeah.
I like that. Tell me if you believe this, but we've been talking for 52 minutes. See, I told you it's not going to be that bad.
That's actually gone very fast.
So I've got some questions that we're asking everybody, and we'll run through those. Why should a lifelong city dweller care about the land stewardship, and conservation?
I mean, maybe they don't realize it yet, and I hope that they get the opportunity to realize it, but it is critical. It's critical for them, us. It's land offers so much. Food, health, adventure, lifestyle. I think anyone with any degree of any kind of trauma, healing, not even trauma, but certainly that can play a massively positive role. We're in danger of losing these incredible resources, and we need as many people as possible to be aware of that.
I agree with that. What's a common misconception about ranching or agriculture that you would like to correct? Set the record straight.
I have two things. One is the misconception that it's this lovely slow pace of life, that you're stepping back.
Yeah.
It's just baffling to me. And yet when they say, what time's your day start? And, and it's like 5 or something, like, what? And it's just, hello. So I think that is one of the biggest ones. And I think on a more serious note, the kind of the messaging around beef and cows and the environment right now, on a more serious note, is worrying, and for its misconceptions.
It is worrying, but the thing that makes me feel better about it is there is a very simple answer. Like, I mean, you can read. Somebody could write 5 paragraphs about how grasslands work, and if people would just read it, they'd understand that messaging is wrong. Yeah. But we are in this age of basic facts not being believed. So. But I agree that is a problem. Can you name a few resources, and it could be books, films, podcasts, anything that have played a critical role in your understanding of land and land stewardship?
Would say Nicole Masters, For the Love of Soil.
Yeah, I have yet to read that, and I have it on my shelf, and I need to read it. I've heard such great things about it.
Yeah, it's a goodie. She's great.
Yeah.
And she's a good leader and a good speaker, and I
think we're going to get her on this podcast at some point.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
And Diane Rogers, Sacred Cow.
Yep.
And I would say those two more, kind of awesome books were written, and I would those.
Those are great.
Could spring to mind.
And then when it comes to conservation and land stewardship, what's giving you hope these days? I would say you see a lot of stuff.
Oh God, all the time, day in, day out. It's great.
Just life here.
Life.
Okay, that's
seeing
awesome.
Wildlife, seeing. Everything about it that's involved in the cycle of life out here on the land, and definitely, yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. You did great. I'm inspired. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for making me less nervous.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ranchlands podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player and leave a positive review. Another way you can support the show is to share the podcast with some friends, either on social media or through word of mouth. And please visit ranchlands.com to learn more about all the various aspects of our work. You can check out our ranch vacations, our handmade leather goods, our grass-finished beef, and much more. Again, just go to ranchlands.com. And finally, if you've got any questions or comments, you can email us at podcast@ranchlands.com. We'll look forward to hearing from you.